The floor is yours.
All right, great. Is this thing on? Good. Oh, here we are. Yeah, a lot of people cornered me earlier and they said, oh, you're the positioning lady. You're going to talk about positioning. I'm like, no, not tonight. Not tonight. So tonight we're going to talk about how to build a sales pitch. I work with a lot of founders. And when I'm working with founders, one thing is most of the founders come from the product side of the house. They rarely come from the sales side of the house, the marketing side of the house. And one of the things that really stresses them out is sales. They'll say, oh my gosh, sales is so hard. And I think it is. Like, I don't know, maybe this room doesn't think it is, but I think sales is hard. But I'm going to say something maybe a little controversial. And that is that I actually think buying is hard. What's going on? I actually think buying is hard. Now, when I say this, a lot of people look at me and they go, buying is hard. Yeah, no, it's not, April. That's called shopping. And that's not hard at all. People do that for recreation and for fun, and I get it. I like shopping. Like, I like buying a beer at the bar. I like buying shoes. That's pretty fun. But when you think about it, there's a lot of things that we buy that are really not fun to buy. Like, who likes buying insurance? Like, that sucks. And in fact, when we think about it, most of the things, if we're selling to businesses, most of the things that businesses buy are actually really, really difficult things to buy. So I'm going to give you a stupid example, and then I'm going to give you a less stupid example. So, like, hang with me on the stupid example. The stupid example is called April Buys a Toilet. So here's how this goes. I bought a house in Toronto, and you know what Toronto houses are like, they're crap. So I bought this terrible house, and inside the terrible house is this terrible bathroom. So I hire a guy, he's going to come fix the bathroom. So he's fixing the bathroom, and he comes and says, April, you need to go to the toilet store and buy a toilet. And I had never bought a toilet before, but I said, okay, how hard can it be? It's just a freaking toilet. So I go to the toilet store, and I walk in, and the toilet salesman comes up, and he says, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm here to buy a toilet. And he said, well, what kind of toilet do you want? And I was like, the one that flushes? And he said, no, lady, we got a lot of toilets. They're all over there in the back corner. You can go back there and have a look, and they got the prices on them and stuff. And when you figure out which one you want to buy, come back and tell me. So I go back to the back corner, and this is what I see. Like, there's thousands of toilets, and they all look exactly the same, but they are not the same. Like, some of them cost a couple $100, and there are toilets that cost thousands of dollars. And each of them have this little sticker, and there's the price, and there's all these features on toilets that I don't know anything about. So there's things called trapways and flappers, and some of them have it and some of them don't, and I'm starting to panic, and I spend like an hour in the toilet store and I can't figure it out, and I'm like, I'm literally not educated enough to go and buy a toilet. So I go home and I do what anybody would do, and I go research on the internet. Well, it turns out toilets are full of tech and features and stuff that you don't know anything about. There's like water efficiency and seat height and single flush and dual flush technology, and there's freaking flappers. I still don't know what they do, and there's trapways and all this stuff. And then I learned the most disgusting thing about toilets. Now I'm going to teach you. There's a score. It's called the MAP score, and that stands for the maximum efficiency score, and that is the amount of solid waste that a toilet can handle in a single flush. And 300 to 650 grams is good, but there are toilets out there that can handle 1,000 grams. That is 2.2 pounds. That's like a little dog. And at this point, I'm like, that is disgusting. I now know things about toilets that I wish I didn't know. And at this point, I'm like super frustrated. I'm like, I don't want to be a toilet expert. I don't want my brain full of all of this toilet stuff. I'm a busy person. I got stuff to do, and I get this genius idea. You know what my genius idea is? You know what? The old toilet was just fine. Yeah, sure, it was kind of old, but it was still working. It was flushing just fine. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk to the guy and I'm going to say, you know what, old toilet's good enough, whatever, done. I don't have to actually buy any toilets. So what happened? I spent 3 weeks. I went to the showroom twice. I spent what felt like infinity on the internet researching toilet stuff. And how many toilets did I buy? None. 0 toilets. So I'm not saying that selling your advanced AI, machine learning, database, analytical, whatever thing it is that you're selling is harder than buying a toilet. Actually, of course it is. It's way harder than buying a toilet. It's way, way harder than buying a toilet. Like, think about it this way. Let's take something easy, like accounting software. How does anybody sell accounting software in here? Good, oh, it's bad for you. But okay, so let's think about how does accounting software get bought? Okay, so I'm the vice president of finance, and I wake up in the morning and I'm like, you know what sucks? Our accounting software sucks. We're in the middle of an audit. It doesn't do the things we need to do, and everything about this sucks. We need new accounting software. Now, does the vice president of finance go and buy accounting software? Do they go on the internet and go look at accounting software? No, she's busy. She goes to the office and looks around and says, you, Joey controller, figure this out. You go research on the internet and find the best accounting software. You come back, you tell me, and then I'm going to write the check and we're going to get accounting software. So she, picks on some guy. Let's call him Joey. So how's Joey feeling? Oh, Joey's pissed. Joey's like, what? This is my job. And Joey's an accounting software user, but Joey doesn't know who the vendors are in accounting software. Joey doesn't know the state of the art of accounting software, who he should be looking at, who shouldn't. He doesn't know anything. And now he's got this job he's got to do. So what does he do? He goes on the internet. And what does he see? Oh, 9,000 million accounting software packages. There's so many of them. And he goes on the Gartner thing and G2 Crowd and all this stuff. And he looks at the ones in the top right corner, but ooh, there's like 50 of them. And then he might go on the websites, and all the websites say, oh, we're the number one accounting software for something. And then, maybe he gets on your website, he clicks that button that says, give me a demo. And then what happens? Oh, it's great. He comes in, gets on the Zoom, and then we get the sales rep on there saying, okay, here we go. Welcome to my wind tunnel of features. We give him the feature walkthrough. Here's a feature, here's a feature, here's a feature, here's a feature, here's a feature. Joey's sitting there with his hair blowing back going, I don't know, man. Like, are any of these things important? It's a bit like me with the flappers. I'm like, are these important? Do I need these things? Do I not need these things? Are your features different than the features of somebody else? And why are they important to me? Like, why should I pick you versus the other guys I'm looking at? Why? What is the answer to that? Well, showing them all the features doesn't necessarily answer that, does it? And Joey's kind of low-key freaking out. Why? Because if Joey makes a bad decision here, bad things happen. Really bad things. Oh, it's so funny. There's usually a picture here, but it's gone. Bad things happen. What if Joey makes a recommendation to the boss and walks in, and they're a small business, and he walks in and says, I've got it, SAP. And the boss is like, are you freaking kidding me? We're not buying SAP. That's stupid. And then Joey feels stupid, and he looks stupid in front of his boss. Maybe he buys the wrong accounting package, and everybody on the accounting team hates it. And then you're the jerk that picked that stupid thing that we all hate. Maybe it doesn't do the things they need to do, and they're in the middle of the audit, and they fail the audit, and like, ooh, maybe Joey gets passed over for promotion. Maybe he gets fired. So what's the easiest, lowest risk decision for Joey to make in this situation? Is to do absolutely nothing. It's to go back to his boss and say, you know what, now's not a good time. Now's not a good time. We're in the middle of the audit. Stuff's going on. Why are we switching accounting programs now? This is bad. He's going to kick the can down the road. And he's hoping that next year, when the VP Finance comes in looking for somebody to make this decision, she's going to dive under the desk and hope that she doesn't point at him. Now, you might not think that this is a common thing, but in fact, this is the fiercest competition that we have. So if you look at the data on this, it's terrifying. So the data on this says, in a B2B purchase process, so that means the company has embarked on a purchase process. They're like, we don't like this. We're going to go look at other things to go buy. 40 to 60% of B2B purchase processes end in no decision. And when you scratch down on that, it's not that they went and looked at everything else and decided, oh, the thing we've got now is really, really good, and we'll just stick with that. No, in the majority of the cases, the no decision comes because they looked at everything else, and they all kind of looked the same, and they couldn't figure out which one to pick, and they're worried about getting in trouble, so they just don't pick anything. oh, I got to come back to this toilet thing just for a second. So here's what actually happened at the end of my toilet story. I went back to my contractor and I said, hey, I'm keeping the existing toilet. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, why not? He says, because I recycled it. It's gone to the big bathroom in the sky. It's gone. You can't. And I'm like, shit. Got to go back to the toilet store. So I go back to the toilet store. I get this guy, he comes in and he says, hey, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I got a toilet emergency. I can't leave here without a toilet today. And I've been looking at toilets for weeks. Like, we really got to get this done. He goes, I get it. Yeah, like buying toilets is actually kind of complicated. And I'm like, it is. You know what? It's actually shit. And the guy said, we don't use that word here, ma'am. It's solid waste. I said, well, it's been solid waste, dude. So he says, look. I'm going to teach you how to buy a toilet. And I was like, okay, teach me toilet, Obi-Wan. How do I buy a toilet? And he says, look, there's only 3 things you got to worry about. It's quality, aesthetics, space. Okay. He says, look, see all these cheap ones over here and all these expensive ones over here? And you've been looking at all those features like flappers and all that stuff. It's just a measure of quality. These things over here will last you way, way more flushes before you got to call the plumber than these ones over here. So, and I said, what? Who buys a low quality toilet? And he says, well, actually, maybe it's a toilet for your cottage. Doesn't get used all that much. Maybe it's the toilet in the basement or a spare room or something. Doesn't get used all that much. It'd be overkill to buy one of these. You should just buy one of those. Oh, interesting. This is the kind of a main toilet. So let's forget about the low quality toilets. Great. We just eliminate half them. He goes, okay, second thing is aesthetics. Some people got a certain look they're going for in the bathroom. They want a gold toilet or something. And those are all high quality toilets, but you're going to pay more for all that gold and stuff. And I said, look, I don't have any fashion requirements, man. I just want a normal toilet. He says, good. We eliminate all those. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere. And he said, the last thing, space. Sometimes, like if you got a really, really small bathroom, they got these ones where the tank goes in the wall. Problem is, if it breaks, you got to break the wall to get in at it. And I said, look, I got lots of space. So, okay, says, forget about the tank in the wall toilets. Wow, now we're down to 3. And I said, great, which one should I buy? I said, look, they're basically all the same. This TechTO one's here is a little bit more expensive, and I got to come clean with you. I actually work for TechTO, so I'm going to get paid if you pick that one. But I think you should pick that one. It's really good, whatever. And he's like, if you just want to pick a toilet and never think about toilets again, that's the one you pick. I'm like, great. So pick that toilet, and I go home. So what happened? Was he being pushy salesperson? No. Was he giving me the product walkthrough? Trying to teach me what all the features were, trying to show me all the features, teach me what a flapper is? No, because I didn't want any of that. What he actually was doing was being more like a guide. So he's giving me a rubric so that I can make my own choices and pick the best thing for myself. So now sometimes when I talk about this to folks, they'll say, well, look, we can't do that because buyers don't want that from us. Like they don't want us telling them our opinion because we're not credible. They're going to be suspicious of us. And in fact, the research tells us the exact opposite is true. So this is from a research that was done with B2B software purchasers, and they asked them, what do you want in a sales conversation? Like you're talking to a salesperson, what do you want out of the salesperson? And the top 2 things were, first one was perspectives on the market. Not about you, about the market. Where do you sit in the market? And the second one was, help me navigate my alternatives. Most of us are pitching like there is no alternative. We're just showing you all our stuff and we're going and crossing our fingers and hoping you pick us in isolation, which actually never happens. So what we actually want to do is build a better sales story. And specifically, we want a sales story that answers the question, why pick us versus the alternatives? Now I'm the positioning lady, so I don't think you can build a good sales pitch without good positioning. And you might be like, what the heck is positioning? It's a slide that doesn't exist. Oh, here it is. Positioning is actually how we answer this question, why pick us over the other guys? So positioning defines what are the alternatives? So who are the things that a customer is comparing us to? What have we got that the other guys don't have? What's the value we can deliver that no other product can? Who are our best fit customers, and what's the market category we intend to win? Once we have that, then we can turn that into a sales pitch. Now, I'm going to propose a structure. I think there's lots of structures that work, but I'm going to propose a structure that I've used with, 300-ish clients now, and I think it works pretty good. And it's a way you could at least start to do this. So the way this structure works is it has 2 pieces. First piece is the market insight. This is not about you. This is about the market and where you fit in the market. And then the follow through is, here's the value we can deliver that no one else can. Why pick us over the other guys? So the setup part is actually split into 3 pieces. The insight, so here's the way we look at the market, and we look at the market in a different way than anyone else. Here's all the alternatives, and can we get an agreement that this is what a perfect solution would look like? Once we get that agreement from a client, then we can say, okay, great, here's how we do that. Let me give you an example, because I think it doesn't make any sense of that example. So I'm picking a Toronto company. You guys know TechTO? They got acquired by Salesforce last year, the year before, I can't remember when it was. But I did some work with them on positioning. So the first thing we did was we did the positioning. So what these guys do, or did, is sales enablement software. So think about sales training software for a new rep, get a new rep up to speed. So first we did the positioning thing. So we're like, okay, if you didn't exist, what would the company do? Well, they put the sales material on a shared drive. Or if you look at the alternatives out in the space, they basically slot into 2 categories, or either a content management system or a learning management system. Everything can get split into those. And so distinct attributes or capabilities. What do we have that no one else has? Well, they're the only one that's built on top of Salesforce. And so then you ask the question, well, so what? What's the value of that? Well, the value of that is, because they're built on top of Salesforce, they have a common data layer underneath. So they can tell, did the sales enablement actually work? Like, did it improve time to make quota or time to a first deal? They're the only ones that can deliver that. And so best fit customers, folks with a lot of turnover, folks that are hiring lots of new reps, sales enablement is the market category. So we did this, right? Now, let's look at bad pitch, good pitch. So the original pitch went like this. So they would do a product walkthrough. So the customer would come in and they go, oh, look, here's how we log on. Here's how we set up the training. Here's how the reps consume the training, blah, 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 feature, blah, 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 blah. And at the very end of the pitch, they'd say, oh yeah, here's how you can measure the results. Does it answer the question? Why pick us over the other guys? Not really. Like, what do they do that CMS doesn't do? 90% of it looks the same. What do they do that an LMS doesn't do? Well, it looks the same. In fact, LMS probably does more than this. So does it answer the question? Is that going to close the deal for you? No, it's not. So let's do it my way. If we do it my way, then you start with this. Okay, we're going to get to the demo. But before we get to the demo, let's start here. Why do we care about sales enablement? Why do we care? Because every day your rep's not making quota costs you money. In fact, I have a nice little calculator to show you exactly how much money. If you could get the reps ramped faster, then this is how much money you're going to make. This is how much you're going to save. So we can agree on that, right? Yeah, I'm selling to the head of sales enablement. They're like, yeah, you're right. We're trying to do this better. Okay, so you have lots of ways you could do that. You could put everything on a shared drive. That's easy. That's free. But if you got a lot of reps, it's not going to work so well. So maybe then, in the companies we work with, they'll pick a CMS. That'll tell you, oh, are we using the right version of the sales training materials? Are we, who's accessing what? Great. Or if you want to get really fancy, you have an LMS, set up a course, and you know who took the course and who didn't take the course. You know what none of these things do? None of these things let you go to your boss, and when your boss says, did the training work? None of them actually let you do that. So wouldn't it be great if we had a solution that allowed us to measure the impact of onboarding with sales metrics, and then we'd know what's working and not working, and then we could actually go back and improve this stuff? That's what we want, right? Now, the reps at Level Jump could do this in about 90 seconds. So in 90 seconds, I'm at this moment where I'm like, we want this, right? Now, if the customer says yes, well, now I got the deal because I'm the only one that can do this. So then I just have to show them how. So then I'm like, okay, great. Let me show you how we do that. So, oh, look, this is how you measure the value of enablement with sales metrics. I can track time to make quota, time to first deal, all this stuff. Here's how I improve onboarding to sell more faster over time. Better pitch, right? Answers the question, why us versus the other guys? So for these folks, it worked really well. It worked so good, they got acquired by Salesforce, and now everybody's rich, and they don't even come to these events anymore because who cares? They're so rich. So it looks like this. I'm going to wind this up. So a handful of things when you do this. When you do this, what you want to do is build the pitch and test and tune it with one rep before you run it out to everybody else. So take the structure, build it, test it with one rep. If it fails, it's often not the pitch that's failing. It's the underlying positioning. Like your value proposition isn't strong enough. You aren't differentiated enough across versus the competitors. You're not actually hitting all that stuff as well. So you actually need to go back to the positioning and fix that first. The pitch should only change when the positioning changes. It shouldn't just be changing for no reason. I wrote 2 books. One is about positioning. That's the orange one. The other one, if you want to dive into this sales pitch thing, is the yellow one. Somebody here has a free book that could give you one if you wanted, or you can spend a whopping $8 on whatever and get it. This QR code, if you get to that, I'm going to force you to sign up for my newsletter. I hardly ever send a newsletter out, but you can sign up for it. But then you'll get the free templates so that you can mess around with this stuff on your own, and that's it. That's the end. Thank you. Ready to do questions?
Yeah, we'll do questions.
All right, we'll take some questions.
Ready to do questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
a couple questions.
Who has questions?
I'll give this to you, and you can give it to the next person so that I don't
Here, but I'm
forget.
coming to you.
Hey everyone.
Well, hi.
It's Ashley.
Well, hi.
I have a quick question. Does the sales pitch change if it's an outbound model? Say you went out there looking for the toilet seat and someone
Yeah.
called you, would that change anything?
Yeah. So here's when I say pitch, the pitch that I'm talking about is a first substantive sales call with a qualified prospect. So what that means is if you do 2-tier stuff on this, so you've got outbound people that are trying to hook somebody and then set up a meeting with the account executive, this is the pitch you would do in the meeting with the account executive. What you do to actually get that customer hooked, to bring them in, is, a totally different thing, in my opinion, because you don't have time to do this whole narrative in those situations. So this is mainly used by, my clients would use this on a first substantive sales call. So it's not the same as whatever. But once we get to that first substantive sales call, then yeah, it doesn't matter whether they're inbound, outbound, or where the lead came from, we're still doing the same pitch.
Hi, thanks for sharing your insights. Again, very
Hi.
interesting. I'm in product, not sales, but I'm still finding this valuable. If you're looking to transform your company's positioning, your messaging, where
Yeah.
would you start? Is it differentiated value? Is it some other place? Where would you suggest we start?
Yeah, so this is kind of my life's work, is working on this positioning stuff. And so I spent 25 years as an in-house vice president of marketing across 7 different venture-backed startups. And then I've been doing this work as a consultant for about 10 years. So I've worked with about 300 companies. Here's what I have learned in that. A handful of things. One, positioning that gets built in the marketing department with only the marketing department talking to each other never sticks. Like, it is the surefire way for that to fail. So if we want to build good positioning, we need to work with a cross-functional team, and that cross-functional team needs to include sales and product, as well as marketing. If we're doing this at a startup, if we don't have the CEO in the room, might as well not even do it, because the CEO is not going to accept whatever it is that you build, and the CEO has important opinions about this stuff. So in my world, the way to get this done is we bring a cross-functional team together, and then we work through a process. So the last thing we want to do is get the cross-functional team together and then just have it turn into some brainstorming session where everybody's like, well, why does everybody love our stuff? Oh, clearly they love it because we have the most nicest salespeople ever, things like this. So what we need is a process to follow. So my first book, that 5-step thing that you saw on the slide earlier, is the process we would use once we get the cross-functional team together. So we can start with, okay, if we didn't exist, what would a customer do? That's our stake in the ground. This is what we have to position against, or put another way, this is what we have to beat in order to win a deal. And then we can build up from there and say, okay, these are the capabilities we have that no one else has, and then we can translate that to value, and then we get to differentiated value. Differentiated value, in my opinion, is kind of the cornerstone of everything. But we've also got to understand who our target market is and who's a good fit for that value. Once we have that, then we can build this pitch fairly easily.
Other questions? Hello. Well, I'm curious which toilet did you end up getting?
Let me tell you right now, don't do any research, don't look at anything, just buy the TechTO toilet. This is, yeah. So once, if you go to I swear to God, half the time I do this talk and I talk about those toilet things, and now I become like the toilet lady. And it's in the book as well. So like people will send me emails asking that question, like, what toilet did you buy? But literally, TOTO toilets, they're kind of expensive, but they're very good.
My follow-up question is, the salesperson,
American Standard, not bad, but you know, TOTO.
you said that you liked that he wasn't pushy, but more of a guide.
Yeah.
What did you not like in his sales approach towards you?
The toilet guy?
Toilet guy, yes.
I thought he was pretty good. I didn't think there was nothing there that I didn't like, actually. What I really appreciated is that he copped to the fact that he was going to get comped if I bought the Total one at the end. I thought that was actually the cherry on top. It was a great way to sort of build credibility and sort of say, look, I'm going to tell you to buy this one, but you know, you should buy this one. I would have bought that one anyway, but it was cool that he actually said it.
What is the follow-up on that? Generally, outside of the toilet selling, what is the thing that gives you the ick about salespeople, like that you have to coach them out of when you're doing these workshops?
Well, so this has been an interesting road for me because, you know, I started just doing positioning work. And so when I wrote my first book, I deliberately stayed away from talking about how to build a sales pitch from the positioning because I thought this is a previously solved problem. And then I worked with a ton of companies, and not just little startups either, like big companies. Is this going to be recorded? It is. Okay, big company rhymes with Woogle, and the pitches were not great. Like, in fact, the pitches looked a lot like the pitches I was seeing at startups. And almost everybody was doing a feature walkthrough, which I thought was really amazing. But there were a handful of companies that had really mature sales organizations, IBM being one of them, that did this in a completely different way. So they would, you know, and they would very much do this thing where they're setting up the insight and then doing whatever. And so it occurred to me that this was kind of scarce knowledge how to build a sales pitch. And most of the teams that I talked to, there was a lot of finger pointing. Like sales was like, well, marketing builds the pitch. We hate it. They give it to us, and then we just mess with it, right? Or marketing would say, we built a stupid sales pitch, and then the salespeople, they just mess with it. And so nobody felt real ownership of building the sales pitch. And because there was no ownership, the pitches were bad. And so what was happening is really good reps were developing kind of their own thing because they had no choice, because the stuff they were getting from the rest of the company was no good. And if you dissected those pitches, a lot of them looked like this structure, and they were just doing it out of natural sales acumen. Wouldn't it be great if everybody knew how to do this? So I had a structure that I'd been using for a long time, and so I thought, well, okay, I can write a book about that. And I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the greatest way to build a sales pitch, but it's probably better than what you're doing right now. So it's at least a better starting point than saying, we're just going to give the product overview. But almost every sales pitch I look at it's either the product overview or it's some super wishy-washy vision thing that maybe you would pitch an investor on, but I'm sure the customers see it and go, I have no idea what you do or what this is about, and this looks like a bunch of stuff that seems scary, or you don't actually even do this yet. You will do it in 5 years. So most of the pitches look like one or the other, but a lot more of this product walkthrough stuff. Almost everybody's doing that.
April, a big thank you for taking a stop in your world tour. That